The following video is filmed in a controlled environment. All firearms are clear and safe. No live ammunition is present during filming. Safety is your responsibility when handling your firearms. Hey, what's up guys, Tactiholics here, and we are bringing you video 1 of a 4-part series on selecting a defensive handgun. So when you're choosing a defensive handgun, be that for concealed carry on the person, inside of a vehicle, or home defense, or some combination of all three, there's a number of different factors to consider. Today we're going to break down a good chunk of those, and then the 3 later parts of this video series will be kind of addressing some more details that we sort of brush over today and use some generalized terms. So if you guys don't understand some things that we say, then stay tuned for later videos in this series. First up, when choosing a defensive handgun, we need to look at fit in the hand. A lot of people focus on the way the gun feels in the hand, but much more predominantly important to us should be how it fits in your hand. Now, some considerations there are, can you reach all of the controls on the gun with your primary hand or with either hand? That includes, obviously, the trigger. We need to be able to get a good grip on the back of the gun, nice and high up in that tang area, high underneath the trigger guard. And obviously we need to be able to work the trigger and reach the trigger in a way that allows us to put good shots onto the target. But furthering the controls that some people tend to overlook are, can you reach the magazine release or magazine releases? Can you reach the slide lock or the slide release? Arguably that's not as important as being able to reach the trigger or the magazine release, but it's something you should be able to reach with that dominant hand without contorting your grip too much. Furthermore, if your gun has any safety or decocker levers, you need to be able to reach those with that dominant hand or with a single hand on the gun if you're shooting offhand. Let's go ahead and break some more stuff down. To kind of finalize the comfort section of this video for today, just as easily as you can get too big of a gun in your hand, as you've seen Nicole struggle with when shooting things like our SIG 229s and 226s, you can also get a gun that's too small in your hand. Something like the little SIG 938, SIG 238, LCP, LC9, things like this. Very good guns, but take into consideration your hand size and the fact that the gun might get so small for anybody's given hand size that you could wind up impeding the efficient functioning of that gun. When considering safeties included on a defensive handgun, a lot of that comes down to a subjective level of mental comfort for the user of that gun. Now let's start from the top here. Starting with a double single action gun, you need to know how the safety or the decocker lever works so that when that gun is in single action, say after charging the firearm before putting it in your holster, not only do you need to be able to reach the controls, but also understand how they work and what makes that gun safe and in a ready position to carry and a ready position to shoot. Moving to the other side of the spectrum, we have a single action only 1911 right here. Along with this and other 1911 styled single action only guns, arguably, it is not safe to carry this gun with a bullet in the chamber, the hammer cocked back, and no safety on, so it becomes imperative on a gun like this that you incorporate and use all of the included safeties on the gun. Now looking at an XDM style gun, you also have a grip safety on the back. To me, that's a negligible consideration as it's a very intuitively depressed and overcome safety feature, yet it does give you a little bit of added security and added bonus, which might be something that people enjoy. Jumping up to the XDM on a striker-fired gun, most striker-fired guns on the market, defensive striker-fired guns, are going to have some type of trigger safety. Again, this is very intuitive, and there's actually a good deal of discussion around how trigger safeties are not safe, and they're not safeties, they don't work. Well, mechanical safeties of some type are susceptible to failing you. What is not susceptible to failing you is the way you control yourself and having good trigger discipline and instilling that stuff from the ground up, working fundamentals, and keeping that finger away from the trigger. The nice part about the trigger safety is that it will prevent the trigger from being pressed and the gun going off should something snag the gun to a minor degree inside of a purse or picking it up off your nightstand or something like that. But if you're not comfortable with that, there are striker-fired guns on the market that have a grip safety, circa 1911 style. Again, very intuitive, but both of these safeties need to be in play in the correct order to make the gun actually fire. And understanding how all of these things work is incredibly crucial. I can tell you that the more things that you have to click and snap to make that gun ready to shoot, the more things you have to click and snap and forget to do in a defensive situation. So less is ultimately more, in my opinion, and regardless of which way you go, understand how they work. Now let's break down the action type of a semi-automatic handgun. Double action only, double single action only, striker fired, all different types of action types. What does this mean to you? If you don't know, stay tuned for a later video where we break this down a little bit more. But today, let's just go ahead and talk about some of the pros and cons and how you need to understand the pros and cons of each action type, or of the main action types that you're going to see. For example, you take something like a double single action gun. This gun is unique in the fact that it poses a couple different inconsistencies, not only in the length of the trigger pull, but also the weight of the trigger pull in double action, and then making a quick change on the fly to a very short and light trigger pull in single action. Typically, a double single action gun is going to have to incorporate some type of safety or decocker lever or both, so understanding how that works is incredibly imperative. Moving over to single action only, well, single action only is going to give us a very consistent trigger pull as it never changes from trigger press to trigger press. That short, light throw of single action only triggers will require the use of additional safety tools on the gun, additional safety levers, and you will need to rely on those to efficiently and responsibly use a single action only gun. So we're moving a little bit closer in the right direction, but again, understanding how the gun works and how you need to make it work is still imperative. Now let's talk about the modern striker fired system. Very consistent in terms of the travel of the trigger as well as the weight required to break that trigger. The nice part about the striker fired guns that people are making these days is a lot of times they incorporate very intuitive and user-friendly safety features along with the built-in safety features we kind of touched on before, and we will in a later video. However, a lot of striker fired manufacturers are still offering additional external thumb safeties and so forth if you choose to go that avenue. Now let's talk about magazine capacity. Arguably, I think we would all agree that more bullets is probably a better situation in a defensive scenario, but some considerations to definitely take into account with magazine capacity is, are you going to run a double or single stack magazine? Not only is this going to affect the ability or the volume of rounds that you can carry in a gun, but also the double stack magazine is almost exactly twice as wide as a single stack magazine, and this will dictate heavily the grip width and the frame size of the gun that you choose to carry. Looking at most double stack magazine guns, depending on the size of the physical frame size of the gun and the caliber of the bullet coming out of it, most double stack magazines are typically going to be around 9 or 10 round minimum, up to 15, 17, 18 rounds, sometimes up to 20, although now you're getting a little bit big for concealing that gun. Whereas a single stack magazine, again, depending on the frame size of the gun, be that a compact 1911 or a full-size 1911, you're holding typically 6, 7, maybe 8 rounds inside of a gun. You get down to little nugget guns like the SIG 938, and size and caliber dependent, you're looking at 5, 6 rounds in the magazine plus 1 in the chamber across the board for the semi-autos. But looking real quick at the 1911 frame, you can see how narrow that grip is, being a single stack magazine. Very nice, slim magazine. Gives you great ability to get that hand around for a great grip on the gun. Moving to a double stack gun. Just like the magazines, the double stack frame is nearly twice the diameter, really swelling up that grip area, which could affect your ability, depending on the size of your hands, to carry and work that gun efficiently. Lastly, for today's video, we're going to talk about the cost. Now, not only the cost of the gun itself, but also the cost of the ammunition. Thinking about this, it's really common to see people take the advice of a movie, or take advice of a gun that their friend has, and I want that one because that guy shoots it, because law enforcement shoots this or that. Don't get a gun and don't go into the gun buying experience, especially for a defensive gun, because someone else has it. That doesn't make it the gun for you. And furthermore, all the criteria that we've discussed before, the fit in the hand, your understanding of how the gun works, your ability to work that gun efficiently, and your mental comfort with that gun, Once you've decided on that, if you find a gun that's, let's say it's $1,000 to get the gun of any brand that will do what you need it to do the way you need it to work, and you only have $750 right now to spend on that, my personal recommendation would be waiting and saving up that additional money, getting the gun that you know works for you, much more so than going out and buying a different gun and making a compromise somewhere in there. Now, certain compromises to an extent here and there can be okay, but don't sacrifice anything that you know you need that gun to do to perform. The upfront hit of the gun really isn't too big of a deal. Yeah, you're spending $500, $600, $700, $800, $1,000, and that's fine, but you need to be able to afford to shoot that gun, which could dictate the caliber of ammunition that you choose. 9mm, 40, 45, 380, these are all different calibers that cost different amounts of money, and your budget and your resources will tie into that, as I would heavily recommend, no matter what gun you get and what caliber you get, not only understanding how it works, but staying proficient and consistent with working it, getting out to the range and doing as much training as you can in the context of defensive shooting. So ammunition costs will play into that very heavily as well and dictate your ability to get good reps in. Well, there it is, guys. We hope that you enjoyed video 1 of our 4-part series on selecting a defensive handgun. Now, all these general topics that we talked about will apply, and we'll be doing videos going forward to further consolidate and hone in on different parts and different details of these guns to help you make a good choice for your needs. So some of the videos we're going to do that you'll see coming up in the series are going to be discussing and breaking down the blood and guts of action types. We're going to explain all that stuff, the pros and cons, everything. We're also going to go ahead and lay out the fit versus feel in the hand. There's a big difference there, and you don't want to miss that one. And lastly, we're going to break down really the motivating purpose that you need that gun for, as how you carry or where you carry and what you need that gun for is certainly going to have a dictation effect on the gun that you're able to buy. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to us here on YouTube for not only the rest of this series, but our weekly gear reviews on whatever we get around to digging up and bringing your way. We never quit.